Hello everybody and welcome back to more political chatter. In this video we will be talking about how the candidacy of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his presidential campaign in 2024 is actually, contrary to popular belief, is probably hurting Donald Trump more than it is Joe Biden. The popular belief right now is that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the independent in this race, polling at 15% nationwide according to Real Clear Politics, on average, the popular consensus is that he, as a former Democrat, remember RFK Jr. first ran in the Democratic primary for president, but I believe in August or October or November, it was actually September, I believe, he dropped out to instead run as an independent in the general election. But it was, it is widely believed in just the common consensus that Kennedy, being a former Democrat, steals more votes away from Joe Biden than Donald Trump in the general election. But looking not at the whole map, but where it matters, basically looking electorally, I actually believe that Kennedy ultimately will hurt Donald Trump more than he does Joe Biden, which would be very interesting considering how close number one this election will be and how that could easily tilt the election results in a few of these states. So, we really know how all the states filled in are going to go. I would be genuinely shocked if any of the states that I have filled in did not go to who, respectively, red or blue, Republican or Democrat, Trump or Biden, they go to. That means that there are about, 7 states that I am really not very sure about, and that would put Biden at 222 electoral votes, Donald Trump at 219, and Kennedy at 0. Now, as I said, what matters, I believe, and why ultimately, overall, not overall, but just looking at the electoral vote and how Kennedy affects the electoral vote, how, states vote, I think that it would ultimately benefit Joe Biden and hurt Donald Trump because of these 3 states: the Rust Belt, the Blue Wall, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. They have a combined 49 electoral votes, I believe. Yeah, yep. No, it can't be that. I don't know. 34. They have a combined. 44. That's what it is. They have a combined 44 electoral votes, and they hold huge significance. Looking back at 2016, the Blue Wall carried Trump to the presidency. He won by 36 electoral votes. The Blue Wall contained 46 electoral votes, so without it, he wouldn't have won. When you look at the margins, it was just so incredibly narrow. He won Wisconsin by 0.76%, he won Michigan by 0.22%, and he won Pennsylvania by 0.7%. And again, this carried him to victory. And in 2020, Joe Biden flipped these 3 states back, and as you can see, he was also carried to victory. Biden wouldn't have won the presidency without the Blue Wall either. He won Wisconsin by just 0.6%, Michigan by 2.8%, and Pennsylvania by 1.2%. So the Blue Wall is the key to the presidency, and that just demonstrates how close, really, these states are in these recent presidential elections that we've had. But in 2016, Donald Trump famously was the candidate of this so-called, what he called, the silent majority. And these are, you can decide how accurate that description is, but that is really, anti-government, more libertarian-leaning, populist. I mean, Trump is the populist here, but people that really, not bought into, but really connected with Donald Trump's populist messaging. I mean, they really um, fell into that and they enjoyed it. They liked what they saw in Donald Trump because of how populist of a figure he was. And I mean, these are the drain the swamp type of voters. That was Donald Trump's messaging in 2016 was drain the swamp. And across the Rust Belt, not just these three states, but I mean, you saw major victories in Ohio, Iowa, Minnesota was very close. Indiana was a huge win in 2012 it was only decided by 10. And then Trump won it by 19. But in this Rust Belt region, you have these blue collar, white, overwhelmingly male voters who tend to be, more on the populist side, more on the drain the swamp type of voter. I mean, that is, these are the former Ron Paul voters. Some of the older ones, these are some of the former Ross Perot voters. They tend to be, more conservative leaning, but still independent, politically independent from the Democrats or Republicans. And that is the type of voter that famously carried Donald Trump to his victory in the blue wall in 2016. He would not have won without those voters. I mean, blue collar voters came out to the polls enthusiastically and overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. Very famously, Erie, Pennsylvania, trended so much towards the right. This is your typical. I mean, just your this is what you think of when you think of a blue collar working community. I mean, the blue collar white working class men. Those are the voters that carry Trump to victory because he said, "Drain the swamp. Enough of this, let's change it up. Enough of the 8 years of the Obama administration. Enough of, the typical type of government like we had. Let's get, actual change in this country." And people really like that, especially the white, working class, blue collar men across these three states. So Donald Trump was able to win them in 2016. Joe Biden may be gaining support among those voters, more of the those blue collar workers who didn't necessarily like how Donald Trump spoke, Donald Trump's attitude, or maybe Joe Biden gained in other areas. Maybe he ran up the vote more than Hillary did in 2016 in the cities like Detroit and Philadelphia and Milwaukee. But ultimately, Joe Biden was able to flip these three states back in 2020. But looking at 2024, we have Joe Biden, who many people feel led America directly into an economic disaster in his first few years in office with the massive inflation and everything. And I'll mind you, the blue collar workers across these three states are very economically driven, right? I mean, that is why they go out to the polls, is because of their financial situation. That's another reason why they voted for Trump in 2016 and many stayed with him in 2020. So these are voters who are looking at Joe Biden, looking at his presidency like a financial disaster. And then you've got the other guy, Donald Trump, and I don't mean to put in, this is more of an opinion piece by the Washington Post, but really, in many ways, I think that many people would agree that it is true. How Trump abandoned his, 2016 campaign entire messaging of draining the swamp. I mean, he completely turned his back on that. I mean, I don't think that anyone really thinks that the swamp has been drained. Many people think it's possible anymore. But Donald Trump was not able to get that accomplished during his 4 years in office. And so we've got, we've still got drain the swamp voters, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin looking for an alternative from these three candidates. So they turned to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just about as anti-establishment as you can possibly get. I mean, he's certainly more anti-establishment than Trump is now, than he probably was in 2016, and probably more than Ross Perot, the independent, in 1992 and 1996. So he is anti-establishment to say the least. He directly attacks both Trump and Biden. So he is really, and his 15% proves that he is really an alternative for many of these candidates. But the point is, while Kennedy might take away, somewhat equal votes away from Trump and Biden across the nation, that is not the case in the blue wall, I don't feel. And that is where it matters, because these are three critical swing states. I saw a poll on CNN a couple days ago that asked RFK Jr. Yeah, it was on Saturday on the Michael Smirkanish's show. He showed a poll, and it showed Kennedy voters, their second option was it was basically even. I think that Biden led by 2 or 3 points, which is in the margin of error. So it is basically dead even between these two voters. Now that is nationwide. In the Rust Belt, and this goes nationwide and for the Rust Belt too, but in the Rust Belt especially, RFK Jr.'s vote is really concentrated among independents. I mean, our Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as the independent candidate for president in 2024, is not stealing, but the vast majority of his support in poll after poll is among independents, because these are the voters that are unhappy with the Biden-Trump rematch, the rematch that nobody wants. And Kennedy is seen, and mostly independents are going to be the ones unhappy with this rematch between the major two candidates. Many are not a fan of the two-party system anymore. So that ultimately results in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being the choice of many independents in 2024. But looking at his support, before we get into what I was about to say, I mean, it's not really it's not very lopsided at all. I mean, this is interesting, I feel. This is polling from IPSOS. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. support among demographics, party alignment is really very similar to America, as a whole. I mean, white, RFK Jr. 58% of his supporters are white, while 61% of Americans are white. Black, 11% of our RFK Jr. supporters are black, while 12% of Americans are black. I mean, it's nothing, interesting to see, because it really directly lines up with America as a whole. I mean, here you could see Democrat, 34% of Kennedy's support is Democratic, and 39% of Americans are Democrat, and Republican, the numbers are 38 and 39, while independent, obviously, as I was saying before, 28% of Kennedy's supporters are independent, while 21% of Americans are independent. So, I mean, that's not party registration, though. More Americans identify as independent when you actually look at party registration. But the point is that Kennedy is not taking from, there's nothing interesting to see. There is not like one major group where Kennedy is taking votes from, or anything like that. So looking at the blue wall in 2024, or sorry, not the blue wall, but just nationwide, we are not likely to see Kennedy really hurt Donald Trump or Joe Biden very directly. So I would say that, he doesn't really affect the results in states like Nevada. Georgia, he probably hurts Biden because he is taking a substantial amount of the critical African American vote, which would all go to Joe Biden if Kennedy wasn't in the race. So I would say that Georgia goes to Joe Biden. Arizona, I'm very torn on in 2024. But I would actually think that Donald Trump is favored as of now. I also think Trump is favored in the state of North Carolina, but that Biden probably wins in New Hampshire. So that comes down to 3 states, as I was saying before: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And, like my spiel that I was going on before, these are drain the swamp candidates. These are, anti-establishment, populist voters, sorry, not candidates, voters, who brought Donald Trump to victory in 2016, winning these 3 states, and then Biden was able to flip back the states, not necessarily them, but the states. So the point, this time around, unlike 2020 when there wasn't a serious independent or third party in the race, this time around there is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is this, anti-establishment, more populist than Trump has ever been, running for president. And he is going to appeal to a lot of these voters who feel that, who voted for Donald Trump in 2016, who maybe didn't in 2020 because they felt that he didn't do what he promised in draining the swamp. So they are going to turn, back in 2020, again, there wasn't someone like Kennedy polling 15% of the vote, a viable alternative, anti-establishment alternative. But now there is. So they are going to be more likely to vote for him. So, and you don't see that across other swing states. Like Georgia, maybe Kennedy has a clear impact, hurting Biden in that case with, polling African Americans. But really, overall, it's going to be just about even from what we are seeing in polling, because a lot of his support comes from independents who would have stayed home anyway. But looking at the blue wall, Donald Trump without Kennedy, and still does, he definitely has the opportunity to get these 2016 but then disaffected in 2020 voters back. But with Kennedy in the race, that looks very less certain, because now Kennedy is this drain the swamp candidate. So ultimately, I think that Kennedy hurts Trump in these 3 states, and I'm not saying that Biden wins all 3. I currently think that Trump wins Wisconsin. But this just gives you an idea of how, Biden would actually win this election if he were to win all 3. But it gives you an idea of how much Kennedy can destroy the Trump campaign, despite popular belief in this election. And it is just in these 3 states. So thank you all for watching this video. Make sure you all go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, leave a like. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.